Hey everybody, Andy here, helping you build a career you love. Great to have you. Today we're going to be talking about how to impress the job interviewer in 30 seconds. You're going to have to do that a number of times throughout the interview. I'm going to take you through that. So if you're here with me live, great to have you. Get in the chat, say hi, let me know where you're from, let me know where you're watching this from, what time it is where you are. Put some question marks in front of your questions because we're going to do some Q&A afterward, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, what's today all about? Well, we want to be impressive. I'm assuming all of you want that goal. And it becomes a lot easier to do that when you have someone's attention, you're making a connection with them, but you have to impress and keep impressing throughout the entire interview process. And so it can get challenging because there's 5 different phases to the interview. And so what I'd like to do today is teach you how to connect and continue to keep reconnecting throughout the interview process, and also make sure that you're starting off each stage in a way that is really impressive. You really have the interviewer's attention. They're very much looking forward to what you're about to share. So I'll teach you how to do that. It's going to take longer than 30 seconds, or it's going to take longer than 2.5 minutes, certainly to share the science behind all this, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So you'll learn how to do that at each stage of the interview process. And if you didn't know there were 5 stages of the interview, you're going to learn that too. So get comfy. Why is this so important? Now, obviously we want to we want to be impressive at each stage in the process, but what being impressive and connecting, getting their attention does is it makes somebody hear what you say differently. And I mean that in a positive way, right? Can you imagine, right? You ever go on a date where you got, those rose-colored glasses because he looks so handsome or she looks so pretty, and everything, it doesn't matter what that's coming out of their mouth. You just think it sounds great. Well, that's kind of it kind of happens, and it's kind of true, and it happens in interviews too. So if you get started on the right foot, you get the benefit of the doubt instead of the detriment of the doubt. So I want to go through how to do that. And it's interesting, I talked in Interview Intervention. For those of you that have read it, we still have a book package for a couple of bucks. You can get this and a whole bunch of other goodies. But in Interview Intervention, 10 years ago when this thing was published, I highlighted a kind of five major points to storytelling, and one of them was being able to capture someone's attention, but just because you have it doesn't mean you're going to keep it, and you need to be able to do that. So I started talking about this many years ago, and there are ways to do that. And much like I taught in Interview Intervention about capturing and keeping their attention, I also talked about how to do that in a resume, or how to get your resume noticed in 5 minutes. And so I was thinking about, is there a way to kind of bring this kind of back to the forefront and maybe give it a new spin? And I was looking at my YouTube channel the other day, and as I often do after we publish any kind of new video, so every Tuesday when one comes out, I always publish a new video on Tuesday, and then normally later on that day or the next couple days, we look at the analytics of the video. And what happened was, I noticed, as I do every single time, that YouTube shows me how the video performed in the first 30 seconds. So it got me thinking, if this is every single time, it's so important for YouTube to help us creators, probably not to mention YouTube knowing what videos it wants to circulate to the people it wants to circulate them to. How is the creator doing in the first 30 seconds? And it's got me thinking about, well, why is that so important? And there's an element to the initial few seconds of a video that somebody watches, especially somebody that doesn't know me or any creator, is, you look at a thumbnail, you see a title of a video, and there is a level of expectation that when I click on that and this dude in a red shirt with a little martini bear is talking to me, I have a certain expectation of what I'm going to hear, and I want there to be some consistency and some excitement and some engagement, all of those things. And I want to get the sense that this person is going to deliver on the promise that they implied, that I inferred from their thumbnail, from their title, from their whatever it is that that person saw. And much like the promises that you make through your resume or through maybe your initial screen with a recruiter, whoever it is, that the interviewer has some expectations, and that first 30 seconds is so important. I thought, let's make a whole talk on that. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do today. And one other thing before I get into the kind of the here's how and what the 5 stages are, I want you to notice that there is a theme to all of the tips I'm going to give you. And when I think about communication and what makes effective communication, especially when you are trying to influence or, in your case, sell yourself in the interview, whenever you're trying to sell something in communication, whether it's an idea, a product, you as a person, you as an employee, there's a couple things you always want to do. There's the priming element and a framing element. I've talked about this many, many times in my leadership program, but I've also talked about it a bit on some of these public YouTube shows where these are proper terms. But priming is where when you start out, where you're trying to move the person who's listening to you, reading your email, reading your letter, reading your copy, or whatever it is, you try to move their emotional state to the place that you want it. And then framing is getting them to look at what you want them to see in the light you want them to see it. So a lot of what you need to do in the first 30 seconds at each stage in the interviewing process is prime them properly to get them in a position of interest, excitement, keeping their attention, level of connection to you. So all of these things I'm about to teach you, I want you to look for that in the tip I'm going to give you. Now, let's get into the here's how, and you're gonna be happy to know I'll probably mention this each time. For every one of these tips, I have more detail on my YouTube channel in a full-fledged video. So, all right, let's get rolling. All right, number 1 is at the hello. That is I turn the camera on, I'm on a Zoomer, or I'm on a Skype interview, or I pick up the phone, hello, or I walk in and I'm in person. That's the first kind of stage where you get the opportunity to greet them and impress them. And one of the things that you want to do in the hello, it depends. We don't always know who we're going to be interviewing with. Sometimes we might have had an introduction to them. Sometimes we might have gotten their background. Sometimes they might have a full digital footprint that we can research. There are many, many variations of who we might be meeting and how well we might know them. But no matter who they are, there's a couple of different things you want to use at your disposal in order to make the connection with them to ultimately impress them. The first one is that you are interested in them. The second one is that you did your homework. And the third one is that you're quick on your feet. Now, some of these you can combine, and some of them you might only have one at your disposal. But essentially, you're looking for ways to, can I show them this? Okay, who's following me right now? Can I show them this? Now, I did, as I mentioned just a few seconds ago, I actually did a video on how to quickly build rapport, or how to build rapport quickly in a job interview. It was about a 16-minute video, of which I'm going to give you about a 3-minute summation right now to give you some tips. And you can certainly go watch that video if you want more. But ultimately, when you want to show that you're interested in them, or that you did your homework, or that you're quick on your feet, there are ways of saying something to them that immediately tries to, where you're trying to bond yourself. So one example is, if you got a referral, maybe you know somebody that knows the interviewer, maybe or maybe even the recruiter said something about the interviewer that you're going to go talk to. And I always like you to say, if you have that at your disposal, hey, I was really looking forward to meeting you. So-and-so said a lot of nice things. Now, you might not always have that luxury, but you might have a situation where you know somebody who knows the person, where you can reference the reputation. Hey, I work with so-and-so over at that company. They mentioned they were a vendor of yours, and while they said they didn't know you personally, they said you got a great reputation around the shop. Something like that. And what you're doing with these examples is most of the time, the person will relax. It is almost done in a disarming manner, where they will become more open and welcoming because you shrunk the world. Now you might say, well, Andy, I don't always know somebody who knows the person I'm going to be interviewing with. Well, there's no excuse now for not being able to research their background. Most people have some type of digital footprints. They've got their background on LinkedIn. There's something that you can see or find, or maybe even their corporate website. But also you can say the did your homework part is, hey, I was really looking forward to meeting you. I looked you up online. I noticed you've been at the company a long time. I can't wait to ask you what's kept you here. Or, hey, I looked you up. I noticed you recently started. I'm dying to ask you what drew you to the company, because I'm really interested in hearing that about you. Or maybe it's something different. Hey, I noticed you used to work at such and such a company. I can't wait to ask you how this company stole you from that company. Just something that is a little different that connects you with that person. And then you might say, well, Andy, they don't really have a digital footprint. I don't really know a whole lot about them. Well, if you know what it is they do, are you meeting with the chief marketing officer and you happen to be interested in marketing, you're interviewing in marketing, hey, I'd really love to talk with you if we get a chance later in the interview about how you progressed to become the CMO. It's something I aspire to be someday, or something like that. And then the last one is, well, okay, Andy, I don't know anything about the person. The person is a replacement, a substitute for somebody I was going to meet. I don't know who they are. I don't know if I know anybody. I don't know what their title is. I don't even know who they are. Well, then you ask them, hey, I'd love to just understand, who you are and how you fit into this. Get them to introduce themselves and then say something related. Well, that's great because, and then make some connection. It's okay for you to do that, and is certainly okay for you to ask the person to introduce themselves in a manner that lets you understand where they fit in the overall process. So there are ways of building this rapport where you will make a connection with the interviewer right away. This is just the hello part. And I didn't want to go into the whole, smile, right? Have great energy. All of these things I believe you already know, but it really, really matters that you do all the things that you would imagine to make a great first impression. But on top of all of those things, you want to make sure that you are looking for a way in, a way to connect. And I think I might have even told, I'm not exactly sure, I think I might have told this story when I did the how to quickly build rapport with the job interviewer video. But I was working with the COO one time. Her name was Joanna, and she'd been searching for salespeople. And we'd done work with them over the years, and they were trying to find the salesperson on their own. They were really struggling for months. She called me up and she said, hey, I think we really need to tap into you on this. And the first person that I presented to her, his name was Jason. So as I was preparing Jason, I said, Jason, when you talk to Joanna, just, here's how she is, and she's been great, and this and that. And I went on and on about how great a lady she was, and how great a chief she was, and how great a client she was, and all that other stuff. And I said, just make sure you tell her I said so. And so the minute he got on the phone, she said, I picked up the phone. He picked up the phone. He said, hey, Joanna, great to talk to you. Really looking forward to it. Andy said a lot of nice things, so on and so forth. When she and I debriefed after that call, she said, Andy, in the first minute when he picked up hello, I knew this was going to be a good call. And 5 minutes in, I knew I wanted to hire him. And then I spent the next 55 minutes just making sure that, nothing was not what I thought it was going to be, kind of thing. So it really can change the tone of the interview. All right, wait, this is kind of a simple one. All right, this is the easiest one, right? Hopefully people are fresh at the beginning, but I want to camp this piece off with, get comfortable with these expressions. Okay, use them freely. The love part, the I'm interested in, the I can't wait to, I'm dying to ask you, I loved your background, I'll be really interested in asking you about. These are okay to say. You're just saying hello. Okay, so very, very powerful expressions. Get them down cold. All right, next part is, oh my goodness. The next part is where you go from hello to the tell me about yourself. This is another transitional phase of the interview where the interviewer, as you know, I often call them, kind of lazy Susie or lazy Joey, where they start out with, walk me through your resume, tell me a little bit about you, tell me about yourself. Now, I did a whole video, mega video. It might be my favorite favorite session I have with you all year in 2022 on how to introduce yourself in a job interview. So now how to introduce yourself in a job interview is not how to say hello in a job interview. I just gave you how to say hello in a job interview. But how you introduce yourself is the beginning portions where you're actually providing insight about you. There's a huge difference between, hi, how are ya? And hi, I'm Andy, I'm a such and such, or I do these things. So what I did in that video is I gave you a 7-piece formula for how to get the most impactful information in your hello in 30 to 60 seconds. So I gave you the exact formula, I gave you the 7 pieces, and I even did 2 case studies where people were with me live, where I pulled up their resume and saw it for the first time and then introduced them to the community, to themselves and to the community. So check out that video, but to give you a summary of what I mean here, the main thrust is you want to pack in as much of the most relevant information about yourself within 30 to 60 seconds. That includes a little something like this, right? I'm Andy. I'm a career coach who helps people find their dream job and thrive in it. I've spent the last 30 years of my professional life and so on, 15 years coaching, whatever it is. And during that time, I've helped X millions of people, blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that, right? What's your roll-up accomplishment? My primary area of focus is helping white-collar professionals internationally and so on, as you can see from my illustrious resume, and then some encapsulating point of whatever it is. I've worked for prominent Fortune 500 companies. I specialize in these kinds of organizations, right? I've generally stayed at my companies for a long period of time. Any kind of noteworthy thing. This entire introduction, of which I've given you all the sentences, if you check out that video on how to introduce yourself in a job interview, in 30 to 60 seconds, you could get this whole introduction in as a lead into how you then will go into more detail, if they want more detail, on you. So this introing of yourself, I guarantee you, unless they've watched and studied my videos, nobody is going to introduce themselves this way. So if you can get this down, and remember, this is something you can practice. You're going to use this at some point in the interview. So this is something you got to have cold. You do this, I guarantee you they will be. That's your thumbnail and title and trailer and everything that says, "Wow, I can't wait to hear them deliver on that and justify and substantiate how they gained all that experience, how they sold that much, how they secured those many new clients, how they broke into this market, how they did what they did." This here is what will build excitement. Believe me. It will sound unique, okay? So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is when you transition into the part where they're asking you questions. So they're actually asking you specific questions that they want you to respond to. What a lot of people tend to do when they get an interview question is they want to go right into, I did step 1, I did step 2, I did step 3, here's the acts I took, here's the results, and that's how I did that. When they're missing the biggest opportunity to sell themselves, and I always want you to start a story with context. Context is king and queen and checkmate, and if you start with steps, I don't understand where you're going, why you did what you did, why it mattered, why it was important, why they called you and not somebody else. I don't have any of that. So it only takes 20 to 30 seconds to give context. So what do I mean by this example? So a lot of you have bullets on your resume that says I implemented the CRM system. I ran the customer support team, right? I opened up a new market. I built this, I did that. And when they say to you, how did you go about doing that? Can you walk me through that? How did you build that system? What a lot of people do is they say, okay, well, the first thing that I did was I put a project plan together, And then I tried to find the resources, and then I'm yawning. Okay, right? Then you don't have the person's attention. There's absolutely no excitement. There's no getting on the edge of their seat. But when you say, I was supporting the customer team, I'm so glad you asked me about that. The reason that project was so important was because we noticed a precipitous uptick in the loss of customers, and we couldn't figure out why we weren't able to hold on to our customers. And then as I got in there, I noticed that our customer service reps didn't have access to the information they needed to handle the support calls. The support times were up. The customer retention was down. We were losing more and more customers, which was translating into millions of dollars lost annually. All right, well, this is a big problem. So now I understand, okay, this sounds important. So I also am getting some foreshadowing into what you resolved and what the result was, because you're going to tell me how you fixed it, because you already prefaced it on your resume about how you did something glorious and saved the day and built, raised customer retention and all that other stuff, because it's on your resume, the promise. Right. So when you start with something like that, then you can go into, so the first thing that I basically ran the entire project using the 7 stages that I would normally do any kind of IT project that would address anything, and then you list out the steps, and then you go into the details of the steps. But if you miss the context part, I have, number one, no understanding of how important this is, why it mattered, why I should care about this, why it was so impactful for your company, and I can get a sense of all of that. I can feel that. You want them to feel it right away, right? So a lot of people try to get the interviewer to feel something by saying on their resume, the market was really down. Everybody was underquote. I can't feel that. I don't know that. I don't care. But when I'm in an interview and you're going to explain to me the context around why this mattered so much, I'm going to feel it. I will. But a lot of you start with the step, and I never want you to start with the step. So when you open up your stories, I want you to make sure you get comfortable with, you got to love the cliches, right? It was important because, it mattered because, it was a big deal because, they called me because. You gotta get these down. If you want more on this, I go into more detail. Video's called The Most Powerful Job The Most Powerful Job Interview Tip You'll Ever Get. Okay, so this only takes 20 to 30 seconds, but you gotta paint the picture. Make me feel it, okay? All right, now, what about, 4th stage, when you ask your questions? Now, a lot of times, what happens? Can I get a show of hands in the chat? How many people say, Andy, I hardly get any time to ask my questions. There was 3 minutes at the end of the discussion, and they said, okay, do you have any questions for me? And I'm looking up at the clock, and I see it's about to strike 1. Right? Most of you will not have enough time, but I don't care if they run the whole hour with you just asking your questions, or they give you 3 minutes to ask your questions. When you get to that stage, there's 3 things that matter. It's the question you ask, or let's call it the questions, but remember, we're about 30 seconds. We're about 30 seconds today. It's the first question you ask. It's the way you ask it, but more importantly than that, what's the primer? What's the primer? I'm asking you because you are the person who's best equipped to answer this. You are the person that is best equipped for me to ask. I have a lot of questions, but let me get to the ones that you are best equipped, because you know the most, because you are the HR person who has the best view and understanding of the overall cultural landscape. You are the technologist who knows more about the product line than anybody else. You are the chief capo de capo who should know more about the strategy and where the company's going and what the obstacles are going to be, and so on and so forth. You are the most equipped to answer this. Get this in. Get this in, and then go right into your first question. Now, this is the most important piece for today's talk, is that I need you to focus on making sure you prime them. Do you know how differently everything is going to sound after you tell me I'm the one, right? There is something unique and special about me that you chose this question or this set of questions to ask me, all right? Get this down, and then you want to go into the right kind of question. Maybe let's cover that for a second, because I have a ton of videos on how to ask questions and which questions to be asking organizations now and forever. But when you get into and you say, well, since you're the chief marketing officer, you're the one that's most equipped to give me the best answer related to, from a strategic standpoint, even though I'm a lonely bean, a little pawn in your marketing engine, I'm greatly concerned with, I don't want you to say that, but I'm greatly concerned with how we're going to be able to break into these market lines, or what is your strategy to break into the new market lines, or where are the market lines that you see the most potential, and what do you see as the greatest challenges? And I would love to know that, because I want to know how I can support that, and whether I have specific skill sets and knowledge and expertise to make sure that we can get to where you want to go and we want to go as a company, kind of thing. So I want to make sure you get this down, get comfortable with this. I want to ask you these because you are most equipped. Okay, so that's as you transition into the question asking phase. You got to remember, you got to have good questions, right? And you got to have the sequence down. But I probably have more videos on my YouTube channel about how to ask questions in a job interview than I have anything else. Maybe salary negotiation. And then the last one. So when you close it out, right? So all right, so now you're asking your questions. Now you see the clock is ticking, you're getting down to the end, you're going to close this out. I want you to say something that no one else is going to say. Actually, I want you to say two things no one else is going to say. So this might be one in 30 seconds and the next in 30 seconds. The first thing is, I have a technique. It's called close, assure, confirm, assure, or reassure, and close. What is this? Let's take this part first. At the close of the interview, you're wrapping up. And when they say, well, do you have any more questions for me? You say, I have a lot more questions, but I know we're running thin on time. So with the minute or two that we have left, there's something I want to make sure I understand, and I want to ask you. The first thing is, it sounds like, so I want to confirm my understanding of what you're looking for. It sounds like, based on our discussion, you're looking for somebody who, list it out, can sell this product into new markets, has enterprise sales experience, so list it out, whatever it is. Are we in agreement? Yes, all you did was regurgitate and confirm that that's in fact what they're looking for. Then you say, okay, well, I hope you can see from our discussion that my experience doing, and then echo it, repeat whatever you just said, and I just want you to know that I'm really interested in this opportunity. Based on what I've seen, I really want this job. So you want to reconfirm that you actually know what it is and are interested in the role. You want to give them a little close. And then I want you to transition to the reservations question. We know who knows what the reservations question is. So I want to ask you, I want to make sure that we're the right fit for each other. Based on the discussion we just had for the last hour, do you see any reservations in hiring me? Right? I've given you much more detail on this in a video called The Ultimate Question to Ask at the End of a Job Interview. I've given you more information on the confirm, assure, and close technique in interview intervention. That one's written, but the reservation questions is written in the book too, but it's also shot in that video. And the reason that you want to narrow them in on the reservations is because you want to make sure that from a communication standpoint, you don't have any misunderstandings, because those reservations come in one of three forms. They either misunderstood something you said, in which case now you can clarify it, so you take a few extra seconds to set the record straight. Maybe they made an assumption that you didn't have experience, but they made that assumption and they didn't get to ask you if you had that experience, and they made an assumption, or they ran out of time, or they say, well, my reservation is I wish you were more experienced or had some exposure too. Say, oh, I didn't know that was important. Oh, I actually do. So you can clarify it. Or they actually have a reservation that is in fact an accurate assessment and a reservation, in which case you can now dampen it. So I go into more how to handle this in that video, but I want to make sure that you get down these 5 techniques. So I want to recap them here really quick. at the hello, you want to make sure you're using something that connects you to them. And some of the easiest ways for you to connect with them is to show interest in them, or that you did your homework, or that you're quick on your feet. So I gave you some expressions there. And then the other thing I want you to do is, as you get into your introduction, make sure you check this out. Get down your 30 to 60 second introduction where you're encapsulating you in all your glory with the most important and relevant information they need to know at the very highest level. And then when you start your stories, make sure you are starting with context. It only takes 20 to 30 seconds to get that context, but it sets up the whole table, and it foreshadows the outcome, and it foreshadows and gets them excited about it. It'll really, really help you when you're telling your stories. And then when you're asking your questions, make sure you center them in on the ones that you chose were based on them, not you, right? You are the most equipped to answer this. And then the last thing, I want to make sure that you actually confirm, reassure them that you're the right hire, and close them, and then ask the reservations question. I hope you enjoyed that. Yes, I got it in 30 minutes. All right, if you got value out of this, make sure you smash that like button, share this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, send YouTube and me good vibes. And if you're here with me live, we're going to the Q&A. If you're watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed that.